So we're here with the No Coast Film Festival Q&A. We have the makers, I would say, of Angie, written by Katie Mae Peters, directed by Sam Rocco, and starring Hallie Newcomer. Thank you all for thank you for joining us again, and I'm really excited. We're really excited to speak with you about your movie. It's a really wonderful film, and can't wait to kind of dive into that.
We're excited.
So let's. I know this seems a little like deja vu, like we've done some of this before. But let's start at the beginning with talk to us about your process, how this came to fruition, things that drew you to it when you were first starting out on this journey, and this can be in how you were introduced, so all of you can answer it.
You should go first, probably, because you found the source material.
Yeah. Also, we have a gremlin with us, so if you hear gremlin noises, it's just Gordon.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
He really wants to be in this, so he makes me my life.
He's mad he didn't get cast. But he went out the role over him. No, I think that the movie started, obviously Sam and I worked together a lot. We had the Bee last year, which Hallie was also in. She had like a small role, so Hallie and I kind of switched spots, so I have a tiny role in this one. So the story started, I heard a podcast about the murder of Angela Samoda and how her best friend Sheila Wysocki, she ended up solving it 30 years later. She was like a stay-at-home mom and realized that no one had been taking her best friend's murder seriously, and she worked really hard and got her private investigator license, and then was able to access all the evidence herself and found DNA that had never been tested, and through that was able to find the murderer. And I think it really resonated with me. It was just like such an awesome story because Sheila did this, when she came home, it had so much press that she came home to all these letters from other families who were in the same situation, but they weren't private investigators. So Sheila ended up opening her own detective agency, which is still going today, and they've solved, I think, over 100 unsolved murder cases to this day, which is it's really cool. It's really crazy, and it's just like how something so cool and empowering can come out of something so tragic as
absolutely. 100 is that's insane.
Yeah.
Great to solve that many, of course. Continuing on.
Oh yeah, I mean, these two, honestly, at this point, I'll do anything written and directed by them. I just really, really trust them. And as a kind of true crime junkie myself, I had heard of this story before, and I thought it was really important to share. And so I was just really glad that these two were backing it, just because I knew that they were going to do Angie's story justice, as well as Sheila, because it's a big part of her story as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for me, I really liked the story. I wasn't familiar with it beforehand, but it's very interesting to me. And I was finishing up film school, and I had an assignment in a directing class that was to do something in the horror genre or suspense genre. So Katie had the script, and I thought it'd be fun to try to do something really suspenseful. So it was kind of like an exercise in suspense for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Different sensibilities, or not different sensibilities, but different things are at play in a stylistically different movie. And from what I can tell you, just all of you guys did it really wonderfully. Like, there were some really beautiful moments in that film. So I enjoyed it. So
we also shot it all guerrilla style in one night. So like the theater scene, it was just like we were in the backyard and we were rehearsing, like, all right, we'll do this, and then we're like, everyone ready? Okay, we have one take, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then Billy, who plays the murderer, he started talking up this I'm pretty sure this chick was on drugs and was like, "Can I be in the movie?" And we're like,
Oh my
"Sure,
gosh.
you can be background behind the
Forgot
camera."
about that.
But Billy like had to keep her entertained so she didn't like. Because we're also like, "Don't draw attention to us. You're gonna blow our cover, lady. You're not even with us."
Yeah.
We're actually in the set right now too.
Oh yeah,
Part of
this is yeah. We shot it here at my house. So
Yeah, that's where we filmed it. You can
Yeah.
hear the train coming through.
Yeah.
after.
That's perfect. This is a kismet, or it's serendipity. All of that rolled into one. That's awesome. I love how those little things kind of. I'm a fan of nuance. You know, I enjoy that, and so if you can, we can have this conversation in that house where it's filmed. It's like it does something for me. So,
that's the indie filmmaker thing. Like, write what you have access to. It's pretty much our motto.
Yeah.
exactly. I learned a thing from the first film that I shot this summer was I need a plan for trains. I found that out that I need a plan for trains, and that's a different story. But that's So I know what you mean.
Angie, and like, because there's a train literally right by my house, so like you
hear it.
you might have heard it at the beginning. But yeah, and Angie, that train scene is like, we actually were timing it so like we could get her, use it as a transition. We're like, all right, it's coming, we gotta go now.
Like the sound and the guardrail things coming down, the flashing red lights is sort of like, I don't know, the bad guy was coming in just as the red lights were going off, so it was kind of perfect.
It's like little subtle things like
Yeah.
we're like, oh, it's totally gonna be so cool. And like people, probably never even see it. Like never even like.
It's like that kid on Super 8 shouting, "Production value! Get the camera rolling!" I love that movie, and I was so like with that, Yeah. Okay, so that's cool.
Monsters, I'm all about.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. That's awesome that you got your associate producer there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
Yeah. He's
like-
the most important one here.
Like,
So let's go one question for each of you. So we've got kind of an in-depth question for each one of you, or of sorts to kind of hopefully you can extrapolate on as much as you want. The first one's going to Mr. Rocco, if you don't mind.
So Gordon, he's Mr. Rocco.
He's the social.
Yeah. Sam, sorry.
Well, it's a-
Trying to, it's kind of involved, so I want to make sure I get it correctly here. Okay, so if you were to look at this film as a film teacher and you were to take a look at it objectively from that standpoint, and you were teaching about the symbolism of the murder, the casting the murderer in light and shadow, those sorts of things, how would you explain it to your class? Like, what is going on? What are the subtle nuances that you want people to pick up on? I know that it's not always easy to answer that, but just here and there.
I'll try to answer it in some way.
Or pick up like a scene. and
I
break it
think
down.
that really with that movie, talking about like an exercise in suspense, I guess. I think that when you tell an audience someone's gonna die, who's money?
I was like,
like, in the beginning of the movie, we say that's the last time you saw her alive. I think.
oh yeah, that's
Katie's
also like a
character says
writing.
that. So
like, yeah.
this is.
Sorry, I was just doing a
Remember
tangent.
that?
Sorry.
Mom, Dad,
Yeah.
please.
The audience can play along with the game if you tell them what the ending
So
is.
they know what's. They
Knows
know,
what a
they
game
know
is
what's going to
murder.
happen, so they're waiting for it. And how is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? And that amplifies the suspense. It's like that old movie with the bomb under the car that you see in the beginning, and then it drives around, and you're like, oh, man. So that's something that's a tool to build suspense. So if I was teaching a class, I would say, it's okay to say that something bad is going to happen eventually. When some people might want to surprise the audience, I think it works better in a lot of cases when you kind of let it build and something's going to happen. With lighting and stuff, I don't know. I wanted to look like an old 70s kind of movie, sort of. I wanted to have a lot of shadows and things like that. But I didn't want to have Billy, the bad guy, just be in shadows and be creepy the whole time. He's a handsome guy. He's got a beard, whatever. So it was very period. I wanted it to seem like he was kind of a normal dude, someone that you could let in to your house maybe and trust him just based on appearance alone. But I wanted him to seem pretty much, normal is not a good word, but normal until he comes in and he just sits down and does kind of the unexpected, which is like, I want water, and I think that's really bizarre. But in that scene there in the kitchen, that's where everything builds and builds and builds, and you know that she's in trouble. So I wanted to use that moment in the kitchen as a kind of break it down into moments. Like the first moment is he sits down and asks for water. Why is he doing that? She goes to get the water, and then he gets up and he goes to the plants. He's like, why is he smelling the plants? Like, why?
That was creepy.
He wants to use the bathroom. Like, what is up with that? So just keep building and building and building and building until the ultimate kind of climax, I guess, which is when he runs at her, which is also our ending because it's like a 2-second long movie.
Right.
But yeah, and I think that the tone, having a consistent tone throughout is important.
Absolutely. And I really felt it did have that. Like I was really on edge the whole time. It was there were moments hard to watch. I think I might have said that yesterday. And it was like, oh gosh, it's just it felt all too real. Like I felt like this could just happen if you're not careful. You know, and it's one of those, yeah. So I completely agree with you there.
I got that. We wanted it to be based in reality, you know, so I'm glad that came through. The other little nuance thing we did, I put Billy in the beginning, like he like walks by.
Oh yeah.
So he like sees her walk away, and like it's important to me to kind of have those little subtle things like you talked about, which I love in film, that you might not even notice, but like she walks away, and he's like right behind her, kind of watching.
I think when you see me the last time, Billy actually, like when I'm leaving frame, Billy's actually
yes, it's
walking
like a wide
past
shot,
me.
and they like
yeah.
So
you have to like
go back and rewatch this. I'm gonna rewatch this. I gotta see this.
Billy was hidden the whole time because he wanted it to be like he was stalking his prey too.
Yeah,
like
and
a
we
real
showed it at the end, like in that slow motion thing where he kind of like does this weird thing with the sleeves. That is so creepy. I love when he does that.
And they also shot it through the fence, so it was kind of like a cage kind of feeling, right? And like it's like Haley was like.
Yeah, I wanted it to definitely be claustrophobic in that moment when they're at the fence, and then kind of open up a little bit in her house because it's supposed to be a safe space.
So, pressing on in this direction, the next question is kind of aimed at Haley's interpretation of this role. It's extremely interpersonal. There's some very critical moments, like the kitchen scene, how it's all building through that moment to moment, building to something, and then there's also that moment right out by the fence. Is she going to let him in and all that? Do you want to talk about some of those things and how you kind of approach that? Because it was a really great performance, and I'd like to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, well, I mean, the actor who plays the killer, Billy, he made it pretty easy to act across. We kept, I think on set it was really helpful too that everything, you know, we're good friends, but everything was pretty quiet and thoughtful, I think. So for me, I just really resonate with Angie, and I think it was really important for me to portray why she let him in the gate, because there is a moment where she has where she's like, I don't know, I don't think so, I'm not, like, why would I do this? Even it's set in the 80s, right? 84, I think. But you know, that was a different time, but it's honestly not so different than what we have now. And I know things are changing for women, but you know, we're taught to, you know, be polite and everything. I know I was raised that way, but there's a certain circumstance where I think that could have happened to anyone. That could have happened to me. Only recently have I been like, hey, it's okay to, you know, not be super polite all the time. You know, if you feel something in your butt, and you could see that on screen, I hope, at least the audience, that you could see her gut being like, I shouldn't let this guy in. But then there's something about him and he almost like disguised himself as this kind, caring person who just needed a helping hand.
Yeah.
And you want to help somebody out like that. It's a really interesting balance. But clearly, as soon as she enters the kitchen and he doesn't directly go for the phone, you can tell, she knows she made a mistake. And throughout that, it's kind of her trying to figure out, how do I get out of this now? But she's still doing the polite thing, even ticking all the boxes throughout.
Yeah, being like a good hostess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good hostess for
like somebody you don't even know.
Right. And it's absolutely, she truly is this relatable victim here, because it was at no fault of her own. This could have, like I said, it could have happened to anybody. It's insane.
Yeah, and that's like the interesting thing too is about the whole, like, some people don't understand why she, like, that's like some of the feedback we've gotten is that people are like, why did her character let him in? This movie doesn't need to happen, but it's like, no, this is why the Me Too movement is happening. Like, and I'm a person, like, I'm passionate about, like, changing society and, like, bringing people up and stuff, but I don't want to, like, throw in your face and be like, hey, this is bad, like, we need to stop pressuring women to be nice to people. But I wanted to do this, seemed like a really good vehicle to, like, be subtle about it and start that conversation where, like, someone might say, like, I don't get why she's helping him, she could have just said no. And it's like, no, you don't understand, like, women and, like, other people, like, depending on, like, where your background is, you're raised to, like, sacrifice your comfort to make other people happy, or to, like, or to, like, to not make other people feel bad or embarrassed. So, like, Billy, especially, because I think the really good part there is when Billy turns away and he's like, you know what, it's okay, it's fine, I'll just go stand out. And then she's like, okay, I don't want to, like, put you, like, I feel responsible now because now you're making a decision to go stand out on the street all night because I didn't help you.
And just a point, because you just reminded me of something, with the Me Too movement and everything. When this case finally went to trial, I think it was like 2006 or 2008, something like that. The defense, one of their big kind of moves that they had was to say that Angie was dressed provocatively, and that wouldn't have happened if. And I hear that narrative so much, and it's so insane to me. But like I said, I just thought it was crazy.
Yeah.
When I heard that.
But we didn't even dress Angie provocatively in the show, because it was like in the movie, she's just like wearing jeans and a t-shirt and a jacket.
But I think that's important too, because no matter what she would be wearing, they're always going to try to find something to blame the victim instead.
And you're drawing on the right thing. Like, what reason constitutes that to happen? That's just awful. I mean, if you argue that, that's just I can't get behind that. But you're 100% right. And just continuing on in that line of that line. So Katie, you wrote this and acted in it as well, but then also this is kind of, I guess, a question here for you on this is, what was the main difference from you wrote the screenplay and then seeing what came from that screenplay, how it was different in your mind as you were writing it versus what the end result was? Talk about that, how you felt witnessing all that in real time, just from writing and versus acting predominantly, and then going to that. Yeah.
I mean, I think I guess starting off, it was like what am I trying to say? It started off as kind of like more comedic, like we had more comedic moments in it. And then I did a rewrite with Sam, like we kind of like went through and talked about it, and like we went back and like I decided to change it to be more, definitely more like just straight terror, like no comedy at all, just to make sure.
Sorry.
Just to make sure that it wasn't just like a slapstick, or like we weren't making light of it. Not that it's not I don't want to say that you shouldn't be able to joke about things like murder, even though it is a horrific thing. I think you should be able to joke about whatever you want. It's like comedy, and that's the way we get through things in life, is joking. But again, like kind of Sam was talking about, we kind of wanted to try a different genre and really try to see what we could create different from The Bee, for anyone who saw it, because The Bee is kind of like a comedic, indie, like superhero dramedy. And so it was written kind of like that at first, but then I went back and like just like restructured the game, if that makes sense. Because like writing style, you learn about writing a game, and so like every scene there's like a game of 3. So like when he's in the house, he asks 3 things to build the tension. Whereas in a comedy, they'll joke about 3 things, like they'll amp up the joke 3 times to get to the crescendo. So I take that rule, like I learned that in sketch comedy class, and then I take that rule and I structured it into the drama. And then seeing it going from the script that we had and seeing it come to life, I think we did really, like a really phenomenal job. Like if anything, it went further than I thought, because Sam did such a great job of shooting it that Fincher style. That's very like, it's just very like I don't know how to say like that kind of dark contrast, and he did really good on like creating like the closed space, that even though you're creating like a creepy moment in the words, like then when you see it and you start feeling claustrophobic in like as the shots get tighter and like he starts getting closer to Angie and stuff, like it just helps bring it further to life. And and then as far as like acting in it, I think like taking a step back and like doing a smaller role was actually, it was nicer, because I got to like take more time to like focus on everything else, and just like kind of fall into the producer role of that and like make sure everything was flowing well. And I was also able to give feedback to like as they were doing stuff. Being the writer and getting to be on set is really helpful, because if there's any questions, you can answer it and be like, oh, this is the backstory, this is what is really happening, this is XYZ. And then also you get to have kind of like, if you see a moment, you get to evolve it with the actor and the director on set. So like Billy, I don't think I wrote this line about him saying, oh, sorry, I'll just go. I think when we were there on set, like I realized we needed something like that in place, and I was like, hey, let's try it. Can we get Billy to say a line about like, what, never mind, I'm just gonna go wait on the street and hope someone comes by. And it's stuff like that, like those little discoveries you don't get if you're not a writer that's not invited to set. And I mean, I feel like in TV you get that a lot, but in film it's very weird for like, I don't think writers don't usually go on like a feature film set to like give that input. It's kind of like they sell their script and it's done and it's in someone else's hands. So it was cool. It was nice. It's a great opportunity.
So, and that wonderful answer, I completely agree with your points in terms of how you go about structure. Structure is paramount in my mind when it comes to different processes, and it sounds like you've got a very good process. And we're running out of time, unfortunately. I wish we could keep just doing this, but I wanted to give you guys each an opportunity to impart some words of wisdom. We have some people that I think, that are wanting advice or your experience with movies, just in general, film, different words of wisdom, or if you have any closing remarks about the movie in general, they would take away a lot from that. So if you would, if you have any closing comments for each of you would like to say, we could begin with Sam or Katie or Hallie. It doesn't matter. So would somebody like to take a stab at that first?
I mean, I always feel weird giving advice because I feel mine, but my number one thing I would say is if you have an idea for a film or a script or something, just to do it. Like, just keep doing stuff. Like, don't stop creating. Don't wait for someone to say it's okay to do it. Just keep doing it. And try not to get discouraged if you're not directing a Marvel movie or something. Just like keep going. To me, that's been the best thing. I haven't stopped, for like 10, 15 years. just slowly it gets better, and you're gonna hate your work that you do. At least I do. You know, like the next, but
Hate
like
watching
you
it.
look back and you're like, oh, this is terrible. I could do way better, and you learn from it, and you learn from experience, and I guess that's my advice. My main advice is just to keep doing it.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, thanks.
I think these guys have really taught me to create more for myself, because I'm not a director myself. I'm just an actor and a writer. That's pretty much all I do. But especially during this crazy time in the world, this is such a good time to keep being creative and keep doing like research and finding new stories, new opportunities. And I didn't think when they put together this film and I saw the quality of it in the end, just knowing the amount of time that we did filming it was less than a day. It's still crazy to me.
2 hours.
You physically filmed it by yourself.
I did, yes.
Yeah, and it's just amazing what if you just do the thing. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it could end up looking like I'm gonna have this on my reel for like probably a really long time just because of them. So
That's lovely to hear.
yeah, and it encourages me to try to create my own stuff too. So thanks, guys.
Awesome.
To be in all our stuff.
Yeah, we
Literally
coming
anytime.
Dude, I don't know. I guess I have like two little like tidbits. One would be like going to film festivals and watching a lot, especially short films, because that's the way to digest more content faster, is just watching shorts. Because especially, you'll start to see patterns evolve that are very cliche that you'll learn to avoid in your stuff. So like, for instance, like a big cliche are like people waking up from dreams or like an alarm clock going off. Like that's like a huge one that like a lot of new filmmakers put in. And I think like if you go to a film festival and you see that, you get like, if you're a judge or something, you're like, oh my God, not another dream. Oh, this was all a dream. Oh my God, everything's so great. So it's like, it's not saying that like you can't have like waking up from a dream, but you need to make it something new, like Inception. Like that's waking up from a dream. Or like, did he wake up from a dream? So like you begin to see those patterns that are overused and that aren't really, I mean, nothing's original, but you learn to like spot things that are, like need more originality, if that makes sense. Like they need your own flavor or like things to avoid. And you also like learn so much. Like you can use someone else's film to point out like what their mistakes were and take that information and transform it into like your work. So like you get double the education, you know? And then I would say the last thing would be kind of playing into what Sam and Hallie both said, like keep creating, and don't let anyone tell you no. Like, so for instance, like this story, it revolves around the real murder of Angela Samota. Hallie just listened to a podcast that like Sheila talked about how she just signed like a movie deal for her story.
Or there's talks or something.
Yeah, and like for most people, they would shut down and be like, oh, well, I can't, like, I'm just going to throw this script right now, but like, I'm still going to finish with the feature and everything, or possibly turn it into a TV show pitch. Because again, it's like, nothing's original. Like everything's been done a million times. As long as you're putting your own personal perspective into it, and also just finishing it, because even though she might get a movie deal, the way Hollywood works, if you don't have someone really passionate behind it or something, like it might sit on a shelf for 30 years before the murder is solved. Just like the case.
Crazy.
Or like, like how many Steve Jobs movies came out at the same time? So like, even if you're writing something and you know someone else has the same exact project, as long as it's not your friend and you didn't steal the idea from them, like you should keep going and like keep creating, like, and you know, improve on it. I don't know. Just make sure you put your own personality into it.
I think those are some encouraging words from some really fantastic filmmakers, actors, actresses. You guys are very fun to talk with. I enjoyed this a lot, and I also
I love you.
Gordon's advice is just to keep eating treats and don't stop barking no matter what time it is.
That's amazing. I've just been like, he's been really good. I was gonna say I do have a script that takes place on a park bench. I'm sure I'm not the first to have done that. You know,
That happens too. People do that.
It happened.
Just
I've
make it the
also
best.
written Forrest Gump.
Make it
It's
the
great.
best movie on a park bench ever, and then it's fine.
I feel like it's a rite of passage at some point. You got to do it. You know?
Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been really, really wonderful. Thank you. On behalf of the No Coast Film Festival, we would like to say thank you to writer Katie Mae Peters, director Sam Rocco, and leading actress Hallie Newcomer from Angie. Thank you guys so much for this. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have fun with the rest of the festival.
We will. Thank you so much. Tune in. You guys, No Coast 2020. Guys, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.
See you guys.
Bye.